You're tuned into RBLR, the home of Tampa Bay's RBLR Sports.
4 seconds left. In front. Happy moment. The Tampa Bay Lightning have won the first Stanley Cup. And the Tampa Bay Lightning have won the Stanley Cup. Lightning strikes twice. The Tampa Bay Lightning win their second straight Stanley Cup.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to RBLR Lightning. As always, my name is Jake Ricker. Alongside me, it's Jose Mataro. It's Matt Gannon. Guys, welcome back to the show. We are finally back once again here for another week of Lightning hockey. I'm glad you guys are back. I missed you guys. I got to say, doing the solo show, it's fun having your own thing, but it's a lot of talking for me.
How tired are your shoulders from holding up the fort, man?
They're so sore. They're still hurting a little bit, but hey, I'm glad you guys are back and excited to have you. It should be a lot of fun this week.
Yeah, you did a good job, and we did a little bit of pre-show prep here, but didn't ask. You guys have a good Thanksgiving?
I did. Thank you for asking. I hope it's the same here. Before we throw it back over to you guys, Jake, you did do a really good job. Sorry I couldn't be with you that day, but you really did hold down the fort very, very well. Did you guys enjoy your Thanksgivings?
Yeah.
Listen, turkey, sweet potato casserole, stuff in the whole 9 yards. Yeah, I had a great time, and I put myself into another food coma once again. So, and a little bit of football mixed in there as well. My Green Bay Packers got the win too, so that made my Thanksgiving even more special. I know. Everybody's yelling at me in the comments right now. Wait, he's a Packers fan, not a Bucs fan? I know. But it was a great Thanksgiving. I hope everybody here listening and watching here with us live had a great Thanksgiving as well. We welcome everybody in here who's new. We are excited to have you today. Hope you guys enjoy the show. We got an action-packed episode for you today. We'll be recapping all the games, of course, looking ahead for the Bolts schedule, our 3 stars of the week, and so much more. And for anybody coming back, welcome back once again. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. Why not? You're already coming back anyway. But with that said, guys, I say let's jump right into it and talk about a couple of the games that we got for the Lightning here over the course of the week. And the first game we have to talk about is the Lightning versus the Washington Capitals. And we had talked about this a couple of weeks ago because it was a big game with Alex Ovechkin coming in. Ovechkin was big into the scoring race, trying to catch Wayne Gretzky. He's been injured, and he did not play in this game today. You guys know my relationship with Alex Ovechkin. We joke about it all the time. I told Michael at the beginning of the season that Ovechkin would not break the record this year. I hate to say that it's come potentially true because of an injury, but unfortunately, Ovechkin is going to have a tough time. He did not score against Tampa Bay Lightning once again because he was not in this game. Although it was a wild game, with the Capitals ended up winning it by a final score of 5-4, despite the Lightning getting off to a 2-0 first period lead, the Capitals tying it, the Lightning taking back the lead, and then a third period mostly dominated by the Washington Capitals, and then pulling out in front to secure the win against the Lightning at Amlin Arena.
Jake, I wouldn't be so sure about Ovi not breaking the record this year. He's already back in skating. He's not doing like team practices or anything, but he is back on the ice. He's skating with both legs. So hopefully for every hockey fan's sake, he is back sometime soon. But
have you ever tried skating with just one leg? Like I've had a blade pop on me where, you just have one leg to skate on. It's not very easy. You definitely have to have both legs skating out there.
Well, he looked good on both legs, still definitely a little gingerly, but it's just good for every hockey fan to see him back out there. But this game was as close as you could get to a roller coaster of emotions. Of course, getting it out of the way, bright and early is the Charlie Lindgren own goal. I kind of saw it loading up happening. He's handling the puck and dishing it behind the net, and everything just slowed down for a second as that puck was trickling into the net. It was beautiful. It was a hilarious play. I was watching it with some of my friends, and even some people who weren't watching the game chimed in. Were like, "What did I just see?" Or just casual friends or something like that.
I feel like that's a pessimistic view, man. I would call it the Braden Point hat trick goal.
Yes. No, that was hilarious too, because I was like, who touched the puck? I think we went to a commercial break quickly after that. There's a stoppage shortly after that goal. And they came back to people kind of half-heartedly throwing their hats onto the ice because it was the hat trick goal. Just a really funny series of events that made this loss a little bit easier to stomach just because of how funny everything was.
In terms of bad goals of all time, the only reason that this wouldn't have been like a number one is, the Capitals ended up pulling it out and winning. But if that had been the go-ahead goal to give the Bolts the win, that would have gone down, I think, as the worst own goal of all time, giving somebody a hat trick and losing a game on it. Unfortunately, obviously the defense started falling apart a little bit for the Bolts, but seeing the replay like 4 or 5 times to realize what had happened, and then a couple of hats on the ice, at least it made it into like a not top 10 series for ESPN.
I mean, even the Patrick Steffen missed empty net goal, they ended up winning that game. You guys are familiar with that, where he just walks it up to the net and then trips and falls. The Stars ended up winning that game. That's who he was with, Dallas. So I really do hope that this goal does go down in the annals of greatest own goals of all time, even though they did win the game.
It's definitely still a fantastic goal. It's up there in Lightning history as one of the funniest moments, especially because Point got the hat trick off it. I was up in the press box for this game, and I didn't even know what happened because I was looking down trying to tweet something and looking at my computer, and I hear the crowd go nuts, and I look up, and I'm like, we scored. Okay, cool. And then I watched the replay, and I could not believe my eyes and what just happened. That was definitely hilarious, and you guys are absolutely right. Would have made it a lot sweeter, but the Lightning unfortunately go on to lose that game. Comment here from Ethan, by the way, saying the penalty after that gift by Washington killed us. And he's absolutely right. And for those that don't know what he's referring to, of course, we've been talking about Anthony Cirelli recently and how good he's been on this hot streak. He did score another goal in this Washington game, but it ends up getting called back because he takes a high sticking penalty, and it's a double minor. So it was 4 minutes, which already put the Lightning in a tough situation. Washington eventually scores on that power play, and the rest is history. So that was definitely a tough one to swallow for multiple reasons because the Lightning ended up losing the game because of it. You had a goal called back. Interesting. I want to get your guys' thoughts on this. Cooper, after the game, talked about this moment, and he said that it's tough because when a play is offsides, on a delayed offsides that is missed by the referees, and a goal is scored, it's going to get challenged and taken back. However, if there's an offsides that's missed and there's a penalty, you cannot challenge that, and that penalty cannot come back. But obviously would have never happened if the offsides had gotten called. So Cooper was a little annoyed by that. He quickly followed it up with, though, listen, at the end of the day, that's how it works, and we have to kill off that penalty. We did not. So he's not necessarily blaming that's why the Lightning lost that game. But I thought it was an interesting point because he's right. It's kind of unfortunate. It's the one time you wish an offsides would have got called because the Lightning maybe never take that penalty.
So I didn't track what you were saying, and I didn't actually see. I didn't have audio, so I didn't see what happened during that the high stakes. So it was an offsides. It was a missed offsides play that ended up resulting in a goal, but in the process of Cirelli scoring the goal, he high sticked somebody for 4 minutes.
Correct. So there was Cooper says there was an offsides. I didn't see it. Cooper says there was, and obviously the goal gets called off because of the penalty because Cirelli high sticked. I believe it was just before he took the shot. It wasn't on the follow through. It was more on his backswing. So that's why. So the goal gets called back. But Cooper was mentioning that forget the goal. If the goal would have happened and there was no penalty, it gets challenged, it gets taken off. But because there was a missed offsides, the penalty still stands because you can't challenge for an offsides because of a penalty.
Dang.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's just bad luck, right? Bad, kind of bad puck luck. It goes both ways. I think the bigger takeaway, in my opinion, is the fact that they lost another game by a single goal. They could have gotten that offsides called, which they would have been offsides. It means they made a bad play to start with to get into the offensive zone. But, I mean, the bigger picture here is they lost another game by a single point or by a single goal and lose out on getting a point by, 4 minutes left in the game, I believe, when that penalty happened. So, they're playing Washington's not a bad team. So looking at the standings right now, they're in the top of the Metro. They're in the top of the East actually. They've got 36 points. They're tied with New Jersey, but they have 3 games in hand. And let's see, that puts them 2 points off the Wild, who I didn't realize the Wild were at 38 points, but they're a really good team. The Bulls played right there with them. And were you smirking because you were thinking of Bogo just then when I mentioned the Wild? Is that what just happened?
I'm becoming a de facto Wild fan this year. So,
Yeah.
it's not just Bogo. I'm hopping on the Wild wagon because they are a wagon this year.
Yeah, that little man crush definitely came out
It's
just a
not
little bit
little.
it's big.
Absolutely.
So I mean, yeah. So they played a really tough team really well, but man, I really would like to see them get the extra points out of a game that was so close.
The biggest thing for me, it's not losing, another 1-goal game. That is really tough, but blowing leads, and they're not blowing them embarrassingly, kind of like the Islanders are in the third period with seconds left on the clock, which is a huge issue for them going back to last year. But losing it in the second period, or early in the third period, I guess this was, or late in the third period was this game. But losing these games in the second period seems to be the biggest thing for the Lightning, which is also a theme from last year, even 2 years prior. Is these second periods are really, really starting to get away from them, and it can't be just the long change. It's got to be more than just that. They have to kind of fix that somehow, but these second periods are really, really starting to kill the Lightning. Getting an early lead and then just not being able to clamp down or play the same style of play that got you up 2 goals in the first place. So I don't know what needs to be addressed, if it's something in between the ears, but they are blowing leads. They're just not quite in embarrassing fashion, kind of like Buffalo last night.
Yeah, it's definitely a common issue for the Lightning all year long and in years past, as you mentioned. And you mentioned the long change. You look at the first goal Washington scored in that second period. They were sitting in their the offensive zone. That wasn't because of a change situation. That has happened a couple of times this year. I know that's why you're bringing it up, but like there are clear defensive issues where to me, guys, the defense seems where. You see these moments where you're like, oh, man, the defense looks great with guys like McDonough back. Everybody's playing well. And then you have these other moments where you're sitting there going, what on earth is going on with this team? It looked like a completely different defense. And that's the big part to it, right? Consistency. This defense is not consistent, and they need to play a more consistent game, because you're going to have games like tonight where it looked great in the first period. They're playing really well. Second period was more of a mess, but okay, tied 2-2. And then the third period, just a complete disaster, and you end up losing the game even after getting a big gift of a goal. So consistency is the big thing for me when it comes to defense. And that was the biggest story for me in this game, is that they could not figure it out defensively whatsoever.
Real quick, there's a comment that is great for this. If you can pull that up. Ethan saying, I think I saw somewhere that the Lightning are around plus 40 in the first period and around minus 40 in the second period, which is crazy. It is absolutely crazy. Being able to figure out those sort of things is huge for, as you're saying, Jake, consistency. But this seems like much more of a run and gun style team that we have this season than it is a shutdown team. With that, we're stretching the ice very well. We're putting in goals. But then when you're playing a little bit more loose and taking more chances, it also opens up the other team to score on you quite a bit. And I think that's something that, because the way that they're stretching the ice, makes you a little bit more susceptible in the second period, because your opportunities to make a mistake are that much higher with that long change.
But this is the thing that I've been harping on too for so long, is just keep up the pressure. Like we saw it even in that Avs game where we blew them out 8-2. In the third period, the Lightning had only like 2 shots on goal or something like that. One of them ended up going in, but still, even when you're up 8-2, the Avs had a lot of pressure in that game. And same goes for what seems like every other game this season, where you don't keep up that pressure. You're trying to play that prevent defense, and it ends up biting you because you can't shut it down. Even with Ryan McDonough, you can't solve all of Jeff Blashill's problems.
I think that they need to figure it out, though. I think that they really need to put an emphasis on figuring out how to play that solid defensive game, because you can't just constantly do the pressure. You have to figure out how to play a shutdown game at some point, so that once you do have your lead, especially when it comes playoff time, you know how to just end the game for the other team, make them go the full 200 feet, no easy entries, and as soon as they get into the zone, it's cleared out. That this team's not doing that.
And that was such a good strength of theirs in years past, too, in those deep playoff runs, is they could park the bus. They could just stifle everything. And that, think of Game 7 against the Islanders in 2021. They got that one shorthanded goal, and then it was just dead the rest of the game. It was a rather boring game, but thank God we ended up winning it. So if they can just channel a little bit of that energy, I know there's so many new faces, like Jake's potato face over here, but they just need to channel a little bit of that energy.
He's been battling internet issues for the past day. One of the reasons why we're doing it at this time. So
you gotta love the good old internet when it doesn't want to cooperate with you whatsoever. Real quick before we move on to the next game too, and then I'll try to see if I can't fix my potato face. The second period has been a potato for the Lightning. The numbers on the goal differential, the Lightning are plus 11 in the first period. They are a -4 in the second period. They are a +5 in the third period. So the second period is the only period in which they have a negative goal differential, and it's crazy. You have such great starts in the first period, and then everything kind of falls apart in the second. Third period's been good, but the second period's been so bad that it almost doesn't matter at that point. So those are the numbers for goal differential. Quickly,
I think what Ethan was bringing up was the shot differential for the periods, which is still just unacceptable to be, down 40 shots in the second period.
Yeah. It's either way you slice it, it's crazy, and that's something that definitely needs to be addressed for the Lightning. You're 100% right, Matt. The next game for the Lightning, it continued with that one goal trend that we were talking about just now, with the Lightning winning this game in overtime, 3-2 against the Nashville Predators. So once again, the Lightning taking on their former captain and Steven Stamkos, this time in Nashville, and the Lightning had trouble in this game. It was a close game. Predators actually got off to the faster start in this one, going up 1-0, but then two quick goals from the Lightning in the second period. They eventually take a 2-1 lead, until the Predators tied it late, but Braden Point in overtime on the power play gets it done. I will say this, the power play, man, has been so much better. It was a major issue and I think we kind of said this, right? Like, okay, Stamkos is gone. That's going to be a big issue for the power play until they figure it out. It seems like they've started to figure out. And I think the biggest thing that they've done is they've moved Point out to that wing spot instead of in the bumper. It's more Hagel who's been in the bumper a lot now, and that's given him a different look. It's changed things up. And while the power play isn't like a top 10 like it used to be, it's done a lot better. And when you have so much success that you do 5-on-5, you don't need your power play to be top 10. As long as it's sitting in the top half, that's a good sign. So power play's been good. Lightning get the 2 points here. Probably a little bit closer than you maybe wanted it. But as I mentioned last week, and Matt, you were the one that brought this up in our chat, the Lightning, for whatever reason, play really good against good teams and then struggle a lot against the teams that they should probably beat a lot easier. They do get the win in this one, though.
I'd say the one standout beyond just the power play for me was the fact that this was a bounce-back game for backup goaltending, with Johansson playing actually a really, really solid game, and not seeing Vasi, even in the sitting on the bench is a different look for sure. Hopefully, we don't have to worry about ever seeing that scenario ever again. But Johansson having .935 save percentage, saving 29 of the 31 shots that he faced. That's huge considering what he had for his start last week.
Yeah, I probably had the world's largest eye roll immediately off the face, or the first goal that went in very early in the game, because I was like, oh great, here we go, another JoJo game. But no, he thoroughly impressed me and probably everybody else who was watching him, because he had an objectively good game. That first period was a little shaky, like it seemed like he was kind of rusty almost, like he was swimming out there, hard to find his post, but he escapes the period with only one goal against. The rest of the game, he really did lock it down, even with a goal coming in the third period. I'm glad you did bring that up, Joe. I almost forgot how good of a game JoJo did have. It's odd that he's the one winner and Vazzy's the two losers of this week. It's kind of a reverse, but still a great game by him. But this wasn't a perfect game by any stretch either. I thought Nashville actually played pretty well, and because of how well JoJo did play, saved our bacon a little bit. Nashville, they're still trying to figure things out, but I think they're starting to kind of, come out of their cave a little bit and see, what they can be, figuring things out. And the Bolts, they had answers for a lot of it, but we're still struggling to take a lead, with a nice shorthanded goal, really nice shorthanded goal from Anthony Cirelli, that, chip play into the net, which prompted me to go ahead and pick him up for my fantasy team. Or actually, I had him on my team before that, but I picked up Cirelli for my fantasy team there too. But just a little bit of a rough game all around, that the Bolts ended up, finding a way to even get it to overtime, and then overtime was pretty pointless for the Predators. It was over rather quick from a beautiful dish and a really beautiful goal from Braden Point.
Couple of comments too I want to hit on here, because you guys were talking about Beverly here, asking what about the goaltending. We were talking about this before, and you guys kind of mentioned Johansson, right? He did play a lot better in this game, which was a positive. He's really struggled early on in this year, but we kind of saw what he can do with this game against Nashville. And then follow up on that, Ben here also mentioning that Johansson can be pretty decent as long as the team plays well in front of him. I agree with that to an extent. I think there's definitely been a lot of goals this year that have not been great on Johansson. There's definitely been some games too where the defense hasn't played well in front of him, and that's kind of been an overall theme for the team too, as you kind of talked about just before, right? The defense has been really inconsistent, but it's, and I mentioned this last week on my solo show, that it's a give take, right? Like, yes, the defense hasn't been great in front of Johansson all the time, more so than when Vasilevsky's in net, but also you want to see him make some of those saves. Even if the defense isn't being perfect, you can't always blame the defense.
Yeah, so to speak on that just a little bit, I kind of feel like, Ben, you're completely correct. But also when you have defense that is absolute trash in front of you, you're getting backdoor goals put in consistently. You're having to face breakaways. It's these really low percentage or save percentage shots that you're facing. Your confidence can start to crash, and when your confidence comes down, eventually you're going to have a game like we saw. Was that not the last start, but the start previous, where I think you can fully put that loss on JoJo's on his back, where that was completely his fault, where the whole team lost the game because he just played so poorly. But this is a good bounce back game for him, because you did get the support that he needed to be able to have just gain back confidence. So it is a give and take. If you have an incredible goaltender, but you expose him, he's eventually going to have a bad game all on his own, rather than an average goaltender that he never sees anything, or he's not put into those stressful scenarios. He'll have more confidence and play above his skill level. It's kind of why you see sometimes, just to finish the thought, kind of see a first-time goaltender come in and only give up one goal, or like a rookie goaltender, or even give a shutout in his first game, because the defense in front of him is playing amazingly well, and gives him that chance to succeed.
And when was his confidence at an all-time high? When was he playing his best ever goaltending position? It was the start of last year, when he was the guy, when he got to start the season being the guy. So he probably got to ride a high going into the season, knowing that, for at least, a month and a half, he's going to be, the be-all, end-all goalie, even for back-to-back games. I think he got in some until Vasilevsky was back, and he was playing really good hockey. He kept us above water. He wasn't Vezina caliber or anything, but because he wasn't the issue. He was not. But the team was playing very, very well in front of him, which I always say that the team kind of gets a little complacent with Vasilevsky in net because of how stellar of a goaltender he is, that sometimes it does translate over to playing in front of Johansson, who gets a little, or the defense and the team as a whole gets a little complacent, thinking that Vasilevsky still might be back there and bail them out or something like that. That might just be my own little fantasy I make up in my head to excuse the poor defense or poor goaltending. But
you get used to it. You build habits and get used to a style of play.
So I'm kind of right.
Yeah, absolutely. And goaltending is like the biggest psychological position, I think, in almost all of sports, except for maybe pitching. With baseball, where you're playing head games with yourself constantly.
being a backup goaltender is hard on its own. Being Andre Vasilevsky's backup goaltender is nearly impossible because Vasi plays so many games. Even though he's said multiple times that he's trying to scale it back, and the Lightning have mentioned they need to let him scale it back, that's never going to happen at this point. I just don't. I'll believe it when I see it. But yeah, it's very, again, and that's why I give Johansson a lot more leeway than I would most other backup goaltenders, is because it is very hard to play once a month, like you guys are just hitting on, and do good. Now, when you do 3 games in a row where you're getting given up 5 goals against, that's usually a red flag. But he played decent in this Predators game. It was much better than what we're used to. So if that trend can continue, you're going to have those bad games, but if you can throw in a couple of good ones as well, that's where you can have Johansson succeed. He helps you out when you need it to win just a couple of those extra games that can help you out in the long run. And then that's the key for Johansson, but he was better. We got a ton of more comments too. I want to get to them all. We appreciate everybody jumping in here with us live too. So I'll get to your comments very, very soon. I do want to get to one here from Beverly because it relates to the next game, because the big game for the Lightning this week was against the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now, Johansson played against the Nashville Predators on the first half of the back-to-back. Vasi expected to get the second against Toronto, with Toronto being the big opponent, the division opponent. And this was the first home division game for the Lightning as well. And Beverly had asked, what about Vasi's play? And it's a big topic in this Lightning Leafs game because the Lightning, unfortunately, doesn't quite go their way. They lose this game by a final score of 5-3, and it got off to a tough start early with the Leafs scoring in the first period 1-0. They eventually would go up 4-0 after 3 goals in the second period. It wasn't until the third that the Lightning started to get a couple of back. They pulled within 1 late in the third period, but then an empty net goal for Toronto puts the game away, and they cannot pull out a big 2 points against a division opponent. So kind of the opposite of what we've been talking about earlier, where the Lightning, not good in the first period. And then the second period issues continued here, bad in the second. And then they actually played good in the third and started to come back, but it's too little too late. And Vasi, it's tough for me to criticize Vasi too, because he's so good and, 90% of the time consistent. It's very rare for him to have these off games. But I think there were a couple that a lot of people would say Vasi you would normally expect to have. And also that's tough too, right? We expect so much of Andre Vasilevsky. It's so hard to pin things on him sometimes. But your guys' thought here on Vasilevsky's play in this game?
I'm starting to think Pajama Boy Tavares might have put a hex on Vasilevsky or something, man. It seems like he finds the back of the net every time these two teams play, and everybody on the Leafs. I can't remember the last time that Vasi's had a really good game against the Maple Leafs, like even going back to the playoffs a couple of years ago, where arguably Vasi was one of the worst players for the Lightning that playoff series. There was a lot of tricky shots that did get through from real far out and real nasty tips, but I really can't remember the last time he himself played stole us a game against Toronto. Again, going back to that playoff feud, that's where it really started to stick out. But the Maple Leafs, I got to give it to them. They're playing really, really good hockey. They're playing really, really good hockey right now. I hate to admit it, but they just know their way around the Lightning. They know their way through Vasilevsky. They do their homework, it seems, every time they play us. So I'm not sure what it is, but it was a really, really fun comeback at the end of the game. Like it was one of those games that I ashamedly admit that I, just put to the side for a bit and just only kind of peer over a little bit at a time. But it was a very, very nice comeback for a bit, and ultimately, come up short because of, of the rare bad first period by the Lightning.
Man, it seems like they are have such accurate shooters when Vasi's in net. They pick corners and possible angle shots. seeing eye pucks that make it through 3-4 people, get tipped just the right way to go in, and they've been consistent with it. So maybe they did come up with a formula that just tends to work against the Lightning. Coming back in the third is kind of made it exciting because it was relatively dull once until it was almost halfway into the third before the Lightning got their first goal. I mean, I kind of did the same thing. I have no idea what happened at the start of the third. I wasn't really paying that close of attention to the game, to be honest. But just looking at the stats alone, it doesn't paint a picture of the Lightning being outclassed. And watching, the first half of the game, at least, they didn't seem to be completely out of the game. It just everything that Toronto was doing seemed to kind of translate into a goal for them. But I mean, that third period was something else to have kind of a big surge back. Cam Atkinson, love seeing him score a goal, especially since he's such a role player. Kind of like last game we didn't mention it, but in that Preds game, Luke Glendening got his first assist of the season on that shorthanded bid. But Cam Atkinson having his second goal, those are bottom line guys that are putting in work, and that was a clutch one to get him closer into this game. But again, if you take away the empty net goal, it's pretty much a 1-goal game loss again, and against a tough opponent. We're not slipping down the rankings right now, in the standings rather, but you really got to see this team start to clean stuff up and finish these games out, man.
And it's also a bit of a loser excuse too, but it was the second half of a back-to-back with travel. You have to give that a little bit of credit, as a part of playing into this game on why you did lose. It's only from Nashville. It's not a super long flight or anything, but even if it's a home and home back-to-back, the second half is always a hard game to play against a team that is fresher than you, I guess.
So if we don't win the next game with having all this time off, what's the excuse? Too much time off? Too much rest?
Oh man, that's the excuse of the past.
That's usually an issue for the Lightning, but remember last time that they had an extended period of time off, they did play extremely well and they beat the Winnipeg Jets. So maybe the tides have turned and they play better when they got extended periods of time off. Joe, you mentioned the standings. The Lightning are actually the only team right now, as I'm looking at it right now, they're at 23 games played. Actually, nope, correction. Anaheim has 23 games played. So they're very behind in games played. They always are for some reason. I don't know why. I still have never figured that out. So that's helpful for them when it comes to the standings. They can jump right back up if they win a couple of games. But, yeah, another 1-goal game essentially where the Lightning just need to find that consistency. That's the biggest thing. And to answer your question, Beverly, specifically from my side of it, I think Vasi's been fine. He's had some fantastic games. Maybe a little shaky to start early, but who wasn't a little shaky with all the hurricane stuff that was going on as well? And it's so tough. You see these ones that you say, Vasilevskiy should have had that, but he's so good that I think the expectations just are a little high on him sometimes. So I fully expect him to bounce back the next game that he's in. That's usually how he does this. So I wouldn't be concerned about Vasilevskiy's play whatsoever early on. These things are going to happen, even for the best goaltenders out there right now. You guys mentioned Cam Atkinson, so I want to bring up Ethan's question here that he had. He said, would any of y'all be opposed for the Lightning to make any moves this season for just one more defensive-minded winger this season to replace Atkinson? It's an interesting question because the defense side is the biggest thing that we've talked about, has been an issue for the Lightning right now. And I would personally say no. I think you're more concerned about, listen, would it be a bad thing? I think they're more needing a top 6 guy still to solidify that. Maybe a defensive player to shore up that D side and the issues that they're having. But it also depends on what's available. How are these guys going to play out when we get closer to the trade deadline? There's still a lot of hockey left. Atkinson has also not played a ton of games. He's not always in there. So I don't know about replacing Atkinson.
I mean, why get somebody new when you got Connor Sherry?
Oh,
right there, just ready to go, man, ready to rock.
Connor Sherry slander is absolutely ridiculous, and I will not stand for it.
He made his way into this game, right? He played against the Maple Leafs, didn't he? I didn't think that
he weaseled his way right into not being on the score sheet at all. No goals, no assists, no plus minus, no penalty minutes. He's got technically three shots. 12 minutes played.
I didn't think that he was his normal net nothing on for the game. Like, I know everything is a donut across the board, but I thought he had a little more pep in his step, which did quickly fall away once the team started doing good. It's all starting to make sense to me actually now, but I didn't think he was as abysmal as he normally has been. But as far as getting like a defensive-minded winger or bottom six or something like that, I think the forward group is fine. You know, we can see that they're scoring goals pretty well at even strength, and the power play is really starting to come alive. The penalty kill could use some work, but really, if Santa Claus could bring us a defenseman or something like that, I'd be much more happy with that. A not Matt Dumba defenseman either, somebody that actually loves to play defense. That would be something that I would be clamoring for.
Interesting. We'll have to see how that plays out, because I want to get through December before making an evaluation. This team, by the way, looks completely different when you're missing a 21 and an 86 in the lineup. So it's also a little bit difficult, I think, to take inventory on what you have when they're playing just a different style of game.
And also a number 20 in the lineup too. When's the last time Nick Paul has played any games?
You're right. It's been a while. I think he should be back relatively soon here now, especially with this extended break. So hopefully he'll be back to 100%.
He was good enough for a Disney trip. He's good enough to play NHL games.
We should quickly mention that now you brought it up. If you missed it, it was posted on social media. The Lightning were all at Disney at some point on this break. They had his little team trip. And I will say this, the last time the Lightning had a team bonding experience on away from home, which was the Sweden trip, the team really came out and played some of their darn best hockey after that. So, just saying, maybe this is what they need to start getting those extra points and get right back up into the standings again. Not that they've fallen off too much at all, but the picture was also really entertaining. I highly recommend you go check it out. There's a lot of little funny bits in there, like Ken Atkinson's shirt and some of the faces. Kucherov's got the biggest darn smile you've ever seen, and that's very rare when it comes to Nikita Kucherov. So if you want to go see a Kucherov smile, go check that out on social media.
Braden Point's face paint was the best. Sorry.
Did he have face paint on?
Yeah.
I didn't even notice that.
Go look at the picture after the comments, dude. It's hilarious.
This Lightning team, they always do a great job to entertain us. That there's no question about that. Quick comment here. Let's see from Ben. The power of Mickey Mouse and face painting going to bring them to the top of the division. Hey, listen, people already said that we got Mickey Mouse Stanley Cup, so why not fully embrace the Mickey Mouse
lean into it.
Part of it, right? Hey, it's been a lot of fun. And, out there at Disney, all decorated for Christmas. We got the holidays coming right up right now. And what better time, guys, right now to go check out shop.rblrsports.com and the awesome team-inspired merch that we have. Lightning, Rays, Bucks, Rowdies, you name it, we got it. You can use links, as always, are in the description, and code BOLTS at checkout to get 10% off your order. So be sure to do that if you need to do some last-minute holiday shopping as well. I highly recommend checking that out. All right, time for the 3 stars of the week. This was an interesting one with a couple of weird bad games mixed in there. Kucherov has been hurt for a little bit. Paul, as we just talked about, has been hurt. So it was a little harder, I think, to pick some names, but, I think we picked a pretty good list here, guys. So starting off with our number 3 star of the week, it's a guy that hasn't been on this list too much, but he gets the nomination this time, and that is none other than Hagel Eyssimont. Eyssimont with 2 goals on this week. He was a net 0 in the plus-minus category, which is pretty good when majority of the team was in the minus this week. He had a great game against Washington, a couple of nice hustle goals. He's that hustle type of player. Haven't noticed him too much this season, but thought he had a great week this week.
Yeah, he was starting to get on, I'll keep it relevant for the holidays, my naughty list here before this week. But no, he really has started to come alive. Like the way he's been playing, it's always kind of, a carbon copy of his game. He's that buzzsaw kind of player. He's everywhere, but has a little bit of Matthew Joseph syndrome where he'll make a great play to the net and then just kind of fumble the puck away or something like that. The scoring touch just really isn't there for him, but he plays the game the right way. I sound like a boomer saying that, but I'm glad to see that it finally does translate for Hagel Eyssimont with 2 goals on the week, and he did have a goal earlier this year taken off the board as well, so good for him. Hopefully when it rains, it pours for Hagel Eyssimont if they can keep coming like that. Again, he plays the game the right way, so I'm glad to see that it's starting to translate on the score sheet for him.
And he also is, starting to see him. It's not that he can take over a game per se, but all of a sudden become extremely noticeable where he's on the puck, he's harassing the opposing team, not allowing them to break out of the zone, making a big pass, and like you said, also maybe getting it, to the net, not quite being able to finish, but making himself noticeable. I feel like he's gaining more confidence too as his career goes on. I mean, let's see, he's only been in the league. This is his 6th season, and he's 28 years old. But it seems like this is some of the best we've seen him play since he's been on the Lightning. I really like what the future can hold for a guy that is able to constantly improve, and he's taking his opportunities right now and making the best of them. He's on pace to do better than he did, or I guess match what he did last season in terms of goals. But I feel like his presence has just been higher.
He's one of my favorite low key, if you can even call that, acquisitions. It wasn't a big name that they acquired at the deadline, anything like that, but he's just been a fun guy to have around, especially with the history of him fighting Braden Point and then getting traded to the team and joining Braden Point. I always get a good laugh because of that. But Mike Eyssimont gets the 3rd star of the week. Hopefully that continues and he can work his way up back on the stars list next week as well. So be sure to tune in for that when we go around those 3 stars in those games. But our number 2 star, this is a big one because it's one of my favorite players. He is the player that if you go on the Lightning photos section on their website, you will see him every single photo because he is just that photogenic. And the person I am talking about is Brandon Hagel. Joe, I see you give me that weird smirk. He gets the 2nd star of the week. Brandon Hagel, 1 goal, 2 assists for 3 points, was just a -1 on the week. What more can I say about Brandon Hagel at this point? He's a hard worker. He's a fun guy. He's got the best sellers up there in the game, and he gets the number 2 star.
I guess I wasn't here. It was your solo show, Jake, for the 5-point performance, the 5 assist performance from Brandon Hagel. I'd be a lot more excited about that if that didn't single-handedly lose my fantasy week because I was playing against him. But I'll put my real allegiances first. It was an awesome performance from him. I guess I'm talking about 2 weeks ago, but still, just a guy that. Just like Mikey Eyssimont, he plays the game the correct way. He's even better. He's one of the best trade acquisitions in Lightning history, and might be a little bit of a sneak peek of. I don't know if we're going to cover it later, but it seems like he might have made the final roster for Team Canada on the 4 Nations face-off roster. So
we are going to hit on it a little bit later, but yes,
I won't keep going about it. But another great consistent season, another great week from Brandon Hagel. I'll let you take it away, Joe.
Well, I mean, my biggest thing was seeing him get 2 primary assists against the Maple Leafs when they're down and out. He's still hustling to make plays, still working, and he's a guy that is always hustling and working to make plays. So, you guys have already said it all about him. It is a good week for Brandon Hagel.
Fantastic job. Also, I want to, because I saw, Joe, you made that funny face when I made that comment. I'm serious. Like, if you go to the Lightning photos page and you look through and I know this because I'm always looking for photos for graphics to make. He is in so many photos because he's just you take a picture of the guy and he's doing a great selly and he's got that excited. I don't know what it is, but there are tons of photos out there of him. It's just, it's a weird thing that I've noticed. It's fun though. Gotta love Brandon Hagel. He gets the number 2 star of the week. But the number 1 star was a clear-cut choice this week. And you may look at the stat sheet and say he didn't have the best week when it comes to the stat line because he didn't score any goals and was a -2 this week. But he had 4 assists and he broke a Lightning franchise record. We're talking none other than the captain, Victor Hedman, who became the Lightning's leading assist maker for the Lightning in history. Most assists at 589. He's now up to 590 on the season. So congratulations to Victor Hedman on breaking that record this week for the Tampa Bay Lightning.
What does he need for games played? Do we know?
What's that?
What does he need
this season?
Yeah. Do we know how far away he is for how many games played before he takes that record too?
Let me double check.
Either way, I mean, he obviously he was going to become captain of this team when Stamkos left, and because he's a heart and soul type of player for this team, and getting 4 assists is it was great to see him still put up those sort of offensive numbers after all these years, and to have a big week like that with assists in order to eclipse the record for most assists in the franchise. It's been a pleasure watching him all these years. It definitely was this past week.
And even though, his stat line wasn't too crazy this week, just 4 assists and -2, I still do think he is having quite a bit of a bounce back year. I don't think he's as atrocious defensively as he was last year. Last year, I caught him puck watching a whole heck of a lot, but this year it seems like he's really starting to get his legs back. He's starting to be deadly accurate with his stick again when it comes to stick checks and poke checks and everything of that nature. I think he's really starting to revert back into his elite defensive form. We're still a long ways away from that, but I don't think he's as bad as last year. So that's maybe a very backhanded compliment against him. But again, I think he's reverting to form. And again, just another solid, consistent, good week from Victor Hedman. What did you say he was at? 590 assists, Jake?
He's at 590. And by the way, for the games played, he is 7 away from tying Stamkos. 8 would be passing him.
Well, Kucherov has 575 assists, so this will be a very short-lived award. But
let's let him have
bask in it while it's here. All right.
But you are right. Kucherov is quickly approaching and will more than likely pass him at some point. But Joe, to answer your question, to you, 8 games for him. Yeah, well, man, Kucherov, he's just
inevitable.
He really is. And it's been weird not having him on. We always call this the Nikita Kucherov 3 stars of the week because he's always just that good all the time. We haven't had him, I think, in the last 3 weeks or something like that.
I think it's been longer. I can't remember when we've had him.
It's been a little bit. He has been injured. He was hurt for the Toronto game, and then a couple other big players. But hopefully he can get back on here pretty soon.
I just also want to mention, too, Braden Point, huge snub for the 3 stars this week. I know there were a couple good players, but he had, 4 goals? He had a hat trick in one game. All those helped out a good bit. And then a beautiful overtime winner. And he's on my fantasy team now, too. I got him through a trade, so I just want to say I'm a little bit offended that he
gets an honorable mention for at least the most entertaining goal of the week.
That's very true.
Good enough.
Matt, to be honest with you, the reason I didn't want to pick him for 3 stars because he was a -5 this week. Which is a little rough. He did have 4 goals though, so that is always helpful. But to have 4 goals and still be a -5, not ideal. But
power play merchant.
Braden Point, power play merchant. Well, Braden Point did have a good week, though, nonetheless. 4 goals is always a good thing. Before we get to the schedule, what's upcoming here for the Lightning, do quickly want to mention the 4 Nations Face-Off, which rosters are being announced today. We have the rosters for Team Sweden and Team Finland. USA and Canada, I believe, are coming out around 6:30 tonight. That's what I've heard, at least. So somewhere around there, we should see those. So we know Victor Hedman, that was already kind of known before this, but officially is playing for Team Sweden. So excited to see him play on that team. There's a couple of expected players, and Matt, you kind of mentioned it. For Canada, you got the most Cooper, of course, coaching. You got Braden Point, Anthony Cirelli, and Brandon Hagel are the 3 potential players for Team Canada that we could see from the Lightning, and then Jake Gensel for Team USA. But we'll have to wait and see what the official words are there. What's so funny?
I don't know.
I'm fighting the devil on my shoulder really, really hard. That's all. I just wanted to know if there's any other teams that were going to be announced for the tournament.
All right. So for those, it's an inside joke at this point. Before the pregame show prep, we were talking about when were being announced, and Matt had said, well, they already announced the other 2, and that confused me for a second. I'm like, well, there's a lot more than 4 teams. It did not click in my head. This is called the 4 Nations Face-Off, and it's 4 nations facing off against each other. So, yeah, very funny. I mean, you got me there.
You're just a year early, Jake. The Olympics are next year.
Yeah. So I tried my best to just, stop it, but I couldn't do it.
Listen, I'm used to being thrown under the bus here on this show. It was nice on the solo show. I didn't have you guys.
We should have taken over chat.
All in good fun. I do want to mention here too Daniel's comment. He said, just booked my flights to go see Hedman play for Team Sweden.
That's awesome, man.
Tournament. Hoping there will be a couple of other additions later tonight for the U.S. and Canada teams. Yes, absolutely. That's super exciting. Where are those games being played for the 4 Nations?
Boston and Montreal. I'm not sure how it's going to be organized, but it's those 2 cities.
Okay, well, boss. So, Daniel, I'm assuming you're going to Boston and not to Montreal, but I know TDT Garden, man. That's a place I would love to go see a hockey game at, because I know it's very historic. I don't know if you guys saw, they did a drone fly through at TD Garden for it's their centennial game or something like that, 100 years for Boston. It was really cool, a really cool fly through. Had all of these great cameos as well, and that it's a cool video. I recommend go check it out. Daniel here, by the way, Montreal is the first games, Boston in the end of the tournament. Okay, that makes sense. All right, so they're doing Montreal and then going to Boston.
So which one are you going to, buddy?
Yes, which one I'm guessing Boston here, but hopefully you get to see some Lightning goals from the Lightning players, and hopefully there are a couple extra ones. I would be surprised if Hagel, Point I think is kind of expected. Hagel, I wouldn't be surprised to be there. Cirelli, I think, is kind of the wild card there.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about the leaks. Okay, Boston.
He's going to Boston.
That'll be fun, especially if USA is playing in Boston. You got to imagine what that energy is going to be like in that building. You know, everybody cheering for the same team that's not the Bruins in TD Garden. I can get behind that. But no, Hagel and Cirelli both having great seasons, being coached by John Cooper in this tournament. I'm not sure who leaked it. I think it was a TSN insider or something like that. But it has been leaked that those two players have made the rosters for Team Canada. One of them might be an extra. I think you're only allowed one or two extras. I can't imagine both are going to be extras, but I think that's really cool. I think it's, what the team might need. Of course, I'm going to be cheering USA, but to have those two players make the roster and be, their typical selves being, role player is not the right word, but responsible players. It's hard to have skill all the way down the lineup. You've got an elite defensive center and an elite, forechecking forward that both know how to put the puck in the back of the net, and both are great playmakers as well, and both great penalty killers as well. If those two are on the same line, Team Canada is something to really be to not take lightly, even though their goaltenders are, a bunch of guys working at Costco.
Well, you threw me off on that one.
Court.
Having those two as like your grinder lines as a fourth liners, someone that's going to go in there, eat some minutes, and be responsible with the puck. Oh man, I couldn't imagine a better tandem to kill penalties as well. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the stat is for how many shorthanded goals and who's leading that in the league right now for this season. But I mean, they're definitely up there with a huge offensive threat. Not to mention the responsibilities that they have killing off the penalties, but to be able to turn it around and go the other way and then bury it, like you said. I was critical of Cirelli last season, but putting him on, this season he's turned it around, putting him on an Olympic tournament roster for a lower line guy. Oh my God, what a role he could play in that.
Is JVB, is he the GM for this tournament? I think he's like one of the assistants, isn't he?
Yes, he is. I don't remember off the top of my head. I'm pretty sure he's just the GM. I don't know if he's one of the assistants or not. I can't remember. Maybe Daniel or somebody can help us out in the comments here, but I believe he's just the GM. So there's a lot of Lightning representation in this Four Nations face-off, which is super exciting. Of course, all that will be officially confirmed tonight, but those are all the expected players that we should get to see. This is where I always get conflicted too. Of course, I'm going to root for Team USA, but always want to see our Lightning players do well. And at the very least, as long as Finland doesn't come out of the gate swinging somehow, we're going to get some kind of representation for the Lightning throughout the entirety of the Four Nations face-off, basically. So that is at least exciting for fans to get to watch that. So you got that to look forward to relatively soon. Last thing we do want to hit on before we wrap things up here is the look ahead for the Lightning. They've had a long break, as we mentioned, which is usually an issue for the Lightning, but last time they did come out and beat the Winnipeg Jets. Their next game is going to be tomorrow night against the San Jose Sharks at 7 p.m. Eastern at Amalie Arena. And then the Lightning have 2 more days off again. So they're playing one game this entire week. Well, they play a game on Sunday. So 2 games in the entire week, which is crazy the way the schedule is all set out for the Lightning. But they'll have the game on Thursday at home against the Sharks, and then they will head to Vancouver to start their mini Canada road trip. That game at 4 p.m. Eastern time. So big game for the Lightning on Thursday, tomorrow night against the Sharks. And the reason I say that is because the Lightning are for whatever reason, so bad with these early games. Heck, you saw it in Nashville. Lightning struggled against the Predators, and that game was at 3 p.m. Eastern. So I don't have high faith for the Vancouver game because they usually struggle with those. So hopefully they can get a big 2 points early after a long break here against the San Jose Sharks.
And this Sharks game, this is a trap game. The Sharks are a wagon right now. Will Smith and Macklin Celebrini, William Eklund, even the goalie Askarov, they're all playing really good hockey right now. Of course, they're still the Sharks.
3-game win streak.
Yeah. Oh wow, are they really? Even with some of those losses sprinkled in there, like over in November, I'd bet they're probably hovering around 500. So they're not a good team, but they're playing really good hockey right now. They just beat Washington in overtime last night too, I'm pretty sure. So beating some good teams in the process. So don't get too comfortable against these San Jose Sharks.
Just with the Lightning need a nice long break followed by a scrub team for them to play down to, and then get blown out. I'll be watching this one closely because you got to see these guys start to bounce back, and hopefully this will also be a return. Fingers crossed, because obviously we don't have any real knowledge of Kucherov and Paul coming back. That'd make a huge difference if they're announced to come back. I'd say place your bets. Place your bets as soon as that information is put out there, because I guarantee the odds are going to change quickly.
True, or you could take the risk and just do it now, and then hopefully then it gets announced, and then you're better odds if before it even gets announced. But that's a risk, obviously. Hopefully they'll be back. I expect them to more than likely be back here for those guys. We've had the long break, and I don't think their injuries were anything too serious, but only time will tell.
Jake,
yes,
are you about to wrap?
I'm about to wrap. What do you got for me?
Speaking of rapping, Spotify Wrapped came out today. And if RBLR Sports was not in your top podcast in your Spotify Wrapped, I'm not going to do anything, but I'm going to politely ask you to listen to us more on Spotify. That'd be great. So I heard rap and it came to my mind, so I had to throw that in there.
I absolutely love it. Yes, please check us out on Spotify. You can check us out on so many different social media platforms. Don't forget to follow us at RBLR Sports or at RBLR Lightning on all your favorite social media platforms. Don't forget to like and subscribe and ring that bell for notifications so you don't miss out on future episodes just like this one. Hit that share button if you did enjoy this video. It really helps us out and don't forget to join us live here as well. You've seen everybody joining in the comments. It's been a lot of fun. Thank you guys so much for tuning in this week, and we'll talk to you next week. Go Bolts!
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.